Good morning. All right, today we're going to talk a little bit about due diligence, and we want to ensure that we're actually finding out the truth about the property before that property steals our money. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I have went out and I created my own acronym. I'm going to kind of run bounce a little different way. I'm going to say bounce for our due diligence. Number one, the B, our books. O is for occupancy. U is for our units. N is for the neighborhood. C is for compliance. And E is for execution. Keep that in mind. If you can remember that acronym, it's going to make things a lot easier for you when you're in the due diligence phase. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our levels of due diligence. Level one, we're really talking about rent rolls, P&L, tax returns, leases, utility bills, all of those documents that you've been told were correct, but you can't just automatically assume that they're the truth. Okay. Level two, verification. We're going to compare those documents to independent evidence. In other words, do the banks, do they see the same deposits as we're being told on the rent rolls? Are the tenants actually paying? All of those things are really important. And level three, we need to make sure that we understand all of the rules. Does our state allow bill backs? Can we actually go into this property and raise rents? Something to think about. Now, books. One thing that is often missed is we are told that we have a 90%, a 90% occupation rate. Now, the biggest problem that I often see with that is, we may be at 90 or 95% occupancy, but what may actually be happening is that 70% of the tenants are actually paying. So with that being said, we have the difference between physical and actual economic occupancy. All right. So make sure you're checking that before you check anything else. So if the rent roll says you should be receiving $3,000 a month and you're only receiving, say, $2,000 a month, that's $1,000 difference. That's almost $200,000 in value at the end of the day. Again, it sounds like not a big deal, but it's very, very important. Occupancy and operations. We want to go in and actually audit those leases. So if we were told when we first bought the property or when we're getting ready to buy the property and turn in the LOI that, tenant A is paying $1,000 a month, and when we go to verify it and we find out they're only paying $900 a month, why are we seeing this? Because at the end of the day, when you take over this property, if the lease says they're only paying $900 a month, it doesn't matter what you were told. Okay, so we need to validate this. We can actually do this with something called an estoppel certificate. We go around, we actually talk to the tenants, we get them to sign this certificate saying that their rate is equivalent to what we believe it is, and we're good to go. Second thing, we need to walk every unit. Not only do we need to see things like HVACs and, moisture, all those types of things, we also need to be looking for plumbing. We need to look and see if we see any kind of pests. Every single bit of that can be a very big deal at the end of the day. Units, utilities, all those things. We're going to validate the roof is okay. Okay, we're going to look at the roof. We're going to look at the exterior. We need to know the last time it was done, right? We're going to check the electrical and plumbing. We're going to ensure that every single bit of that is up to code. If it's not, remember, if you make a change on electrical and it's not up to code, you're going to have to bring it up to code. HVACs. If all of your HVACs, and let's say you have 20 units, and every one of those HVAC systems are 20 years old, you're going to have to replace all of those at a significant cost. Definitely need to validate every single piece of this. And utilities. Who's paying the utilities? Is RUBS legal? All of those things need to be checked and validated. Okay, next thing. So it's not so much just validating the property. You need to also look at the neighborhood. If we have it in our mind that we're going to increase rents to $1,000 a month, and that first we got to validate that the median rent in that area can support that. Second, we need to validate that the median salaries can support that. So if we're saying $1,000 a month, 3 times that should be equivalent to the median salary. Okay. If it's not, you're going to have a very difficult time in increasing those rents. So again, we need to make sure we're testing the rent growth assumption. Compliance, contracts, claims. Are there any title or zoning issues? Does this property have any code violations or permits? Are there any environmental issues? And are there any vendor contracts or deposits that are in place that you don't know about that you really need to get a handle on? Okay. Because it could be something that you're stuck with after purchasing the property. Now, once we have went through all of our due diligence, we need to take the underwriting that we looked at prior to or when we submitted our LOI. We need to compare it to our post due diligence. Once we've done that, we need to see if it matches up. We need to see if it doesn't match up. Does it pass the stress test? And we need to revisit if we still believe our exit is valuable. And that brings us to the end of this. So we have 3 options. Do we want to proceed with the property? Do we want to renegotiate the property? Or do we want to walk away? Now, one thing that we want to try to avoid is retrading. Retrading is we purposely outbid everybody else. We already knew that we were going to actually turn around and retrade down the line. It is not when you get in there and you see that something does not match up with what you were told. Okay. Retrading can be a bad thing if you're overbidding with the purpose of retrading versus actual issues. Okay. Or do we want to walk away with this property? If we find too many things, we know it's just not going to work, we may want to walk away. Hope this was helpful. Talk to y'all later.